IV fluids, the first classification that we'll be dealing with will be called crystalloids. And the reason that I paused there for crystal is because I want you to think of these electrolytes as being crystal. And the reason I say that is I'll go ahead and introduce the second category that we'll discuss next, and those would be colloids. And oftentimes, students get crystalloids and colloids confused, and there's really no need for that. Here, the crystalloids, the crystals, would be the electrolytes, and we primarily are dealing with sodium and chloride, as you can imagine. Now, these do not readily cross the plasma membrane, and this is something that we have already discussed in reference to sodium chloride. For example, once again, organization, you have your ECF and ICF. The membrane that separates the ECF and ICF would then be your plasma or cell membrane. And you know that electrolytes, such as sodium and company, do not cross it. Well, potassium will, but that obviously is not brought into the discussion here. Whereas the membrane that separates the ECF amongst ECF, meaning to say the plasma compartment and also the interstitium, is then separated by your capillary membrane, and then here, of course, your sodium and chloride would readily cross. I hope that's clear. That's an organization pattern that we've established now throughout the lecture series. Now, when dealing with crystalloids, regardless of getting this fluid into the plasma or into the interstitium, overall, what have you done? You've introduced the fluids into the ECF. Now, with that said, obviously the compartment that you want to replenish, if need be, when a patient has undergone hypovolemic changes or hypovolemic type of conditions, would be in fact the plasma compartment. But understand, because of its cost effectiveness, that saline, which is a crystalloid, including sodium chloride, would be the easiest access point. As we said, now, there's going to be a little bit of math involved here, and it's important that you at least understand this much. I'm going to give you the most complicated situation that you might then encounter here in your medical education. Obviously, when you go further into specialization, there's going to be a lot more detail required of you, but let's just keep things at this point at the level where it's just enough where you can be successful as you walk into any ward and take any board. The crystalloid is distributed equally through the ECF. In the ECF, now the values that you want to use here, technically, would be 1/4, and we've talked about this plenty. 1/4 would be the plasma, and then 3/4 of this would then be the interstitium. But overall, we are only remaining where? Good. In the ECF. Examples, normal saline and lactate ringer or Ringer's lactate. Now, some of these crystalloids is all we're doing here. We haven't gone into albumin because that is a different category, right? So all we're doing here is looking at crystalloids. Thus, we have normal saline and Ringer's lactate. So if you haven't questioned, why isn't fresh frozen plasma here? That's because, well, we haven't gotten into colloids, which is our next discussion.